Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone, a podcast. I'm Niko Tamurian, joined as always by my good buddy Najee Moye. What's up, Najee?
Niko, how's it going, man? How's life?
You know, life is good.
It's October 1st.
It's October, which I don't like that it's October. I do like the fall sports are in full swing.
Yeah.
I don't like that the Mariners aren't playing. I don't like that it's probably about to rain for about 5 straight months.
No, this is fall.
I like rain. Like you don't have to shovel it.
You don't. That's true. You don't have to shovel rain. This is my season. My birthday is next month. I won't tell you how old it is and how old I am. And I think the seasons are changing. The seasons have changed. The trees are changing. This is a beautiful time to be in Seattle. This is actually my favorite time to be in Seattle. I know the summers are just like, Seattle summers are unmatched, and they are. I love a coffee. I love a walk around the lake. I love a sweater. I love trees falling down the leaves falling down from the trees, and I like Seahawks wins, which is not something that we got. This past week.
I like wearing shorts and hoodies like 12 months out of the year.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? Like
right.
it works summer, and then Seattle winters aren't that bad. You can still get away. You might be a little chilly, I guess. But that has nothing to do with the Seahawks losing to the Lions. Before we really dive into this Giants game, let's talk about that because here's my emotion on it, Najee, and I don't know how you feel. I left that game feeling optimistic, which who feels optimistic after a 42-29 loss? For me, it kind of came down to the idea that, okay, you're missing going into it 4 defensive starters, all on the defensive line against a really strong run game. Then you lose Julian Love, who's essentially like the quarterback of that defensive secondary, right? That's difficult for anybody to overcome, but I love the way they kept battling. I love the way that they found a way to score points. The offense over 500 yards. I came out of that saying, okay, Detroit's really good. You were shorthanded on defense. You showed me something in this game. And I came away wishing they won, of course, but overall optimistic.
I really feel like we learned a lot about Detroit last night, and the Seahawks got a good loss.
Sure.
This is the best team that the Seahawks have played all year. I know the Dolphins are great, but they had a quarterback situation, so who knows? And I think they are still trying to win a game. The Detroit Lions offense is in a word spectacular. And as you mentioned before, Niko, the Seahawks had a lot of defensive starters out, and it showed. It showed on my fantasy team because I have a couple of Detroit Lions players on the team, and they all did well. First of all, you're not going to win a game if the opposing quarterback is literally perfect. Did not miss a pass at all. Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And yes, the Seahawks offense stepped up and made it a game. It was closer. I think the game was closer than the score suggested. I think DK Metcalf got robbed.
That was tough.
2-point conversion. I think that was tough.
And the interference in the end zone.
And the interference in the end zone. But he also fumbled the ball. So it's give and take. It was great to see K9 back on offense. He looked awesome. I love the combination of him and Charbonnet more on all-purpose receiving guy last night. I was just really impressed with what the Lions did. It's hard to play in that stadium on the road. I do think if we're looking at this from the Seahawks angle, you're optimistic after that game. I guess so. You should be happy that you're not playing the Lions again. This coming week, you're playing a team in the New York Giants that could probably get beaten by Alabama or Texas. This year. I do think that the defense is like, okay, if we want to take this next level, the Seahawks defense, if you want to get to the next level, to playing to, we got to get healthy and we got to figure out a way to lock down these receivers because Jameson Williams was running everywhere.
Sure.
And he's a very fast guy.
Yeah, and I think that was part of like when Love got knocked out, trying to adjust.
The adjustment wasn't there.
I again, and I do want to move on to the Giants because that is what's next. They're already doing that at VMAC, and I look at it this way, like we talked about the shorthandedness, and you made a great point a minute ago. There is a lot to clean up. Like being optimistic about a loss is one thing. Thinking that everything is spot on and perfect, and that's a whole nother matter. And so I ultimately think that there's a lot that they have to improve on, especially in defense. And Mike McDonald was the first one to say that. He's like, we got to clean up a lot.
Yeah.
He's
the guy to do it.
He's got to do it.
He's the guy to do it.
What really stood out to me, I don't know how you feel about this, Nash, but one of the things I love is that it's one thing like in the Legion of Boom days, Seahawks were national TV like every week, and like nowadays, yes, respectable franchise still, but the Monday night opportunities are maybe once or twice a year at most, right? And so when you have that first look, okay, of this national spotlight, and you see the national perception, whether it's folks on social media, which take that with a grain of salt, but we're talking about the commentators, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. At the end of the game, Troy Aikman saying like, "Yeah, they showed me something tonight." That's cool to hear, and I think that what I'm trying to get at with this is that they made a statement, even in a losing effort. Hey, this is a new era, a new regime. Not to say the Pete Carroll days weren't great, but this is a team that, it doesn't matter if they're missing all these guys. It doesn't matter if they're down 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. Like, they're going to keep scratching and clawing and hopefully give themselves a chance.
They definitely fought at the end of the game. And one person that really, he's the captain of Geno Smith, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
In situations, if you watch the NFL for a long time, if the quarterback throws 56 times a game, they're probably not going to win the game. However, Geno really distributed the ball evenly throughout the whole entire field.
I agree.
Everyone caught the ball a lot. Lockett, Metcalf, Charbonnet, JSN. And, his numbers were still solid. Given he did have a pick, he threw about almost 400 yards, 38 of 56.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Career high,
38-56. And that's pretty solid after all.
Yeah.
In having K9 scoring 3 touchdowns on the ground was sensational. He's a fire starter. I love that guy. But
different look to this offense. We got both him and Charbonnet.
And I think the future is bright with those two, definitely. But I'm just really impressed with Geno, how he's stuck in there. The offensive line had him. That's another thing. He was running for his life, and sometimes he didn't even get a chance to throw.
That's true too.
And we talked about the Lions, and I think the Seahawks kind of, with the team like the Lions, you have to get off to a very fast start because you want to be able to use your own run game. And I'm not even sure if the Seahawks even got to that point. They're running with, when they were behind. And that being said, it's fine, but
but
you want it to stay balanced, but it's not exactly what you want. You want to score points. They did score a lot of points, but not enough. Oftentimes, if you can score 30 points in an NFL game, you're going to win. Not last night, unfortunately.
No. Najee, you want to know how much of a statement it made to the Seahawks and the national folks?
Go ahead.
When this Sunday's game, Seahawks-Giants 125 kickoff at Lumen Field, when the betting line opened for it, Seahawks were favored by 3.5 points. Now, the Seahawks are favored by 6 points.
Yeah.
And that's for, I'm sure most of the listeners and viewers are acquainted with this, what that means. But what it means is the idea that the Seahawks are, a lot of people are betting them. So they have to keep raising the line.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are betting them because of what they saw in that line.
And you should take them. You should take them.
I want to bring this up because normally when I say meet the opponent, we're bringing in a journalist who covers that market, but you're not going to get better analysis than lifelong New York Giants fan, Najee Moye, one of my best friends here in Seattle, especially. So meet the opponent. In other words, meet Najee.
Here's the thing. I love Seattle, and I moved here for about 4 years ago, but I've been a lifelong Giants fan for my whole life, actually. Lifelong for a long time. I've been a Giants fan since the Kerry Collins days, he and this team that is on the field right now, there are bright spots. There's not many of them. Here's the thing. This is a team that has a couple good bones, and the rest of them are made out of jelly. I'm not sure if you've seen Hard Knocks this past season I'm talking about the whole Saquon Barkley situation.
Yeah.
I'm in pain still to this day. Last week the Giants lost to the Dallas Cowboys. They could have won that game, I think.
Okay.
But you're not winning a game when you're only rushing for 27 yards.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary is a fine running back. The offensive line is well improved. That being said, I think the Seahawks will have no problem running through the Giants this year. And a lot of people talk about Daniel Jones, and I'm one of them. He's a quarterback. It's not anyone that Seahawks need to worry about. I'm imagining he's going to throw like 2 picks against it.
Okay.
I think for the Giants team to be good this year, he has to be exceptionally great. He has never been that in his whole entire career.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think you should definitely take the Seahawks this year.
6 is a lot of points. 6 is a lot of points.
And one bright spot that the Giants do have is they have a great pass rush. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, an absolute stud rookie wide receiver, probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. and Malik Neighbors. He'll be your neighbor, by the way.
Yeah,
which is my fantasy name in my league that I'm 0-4 in.
I'm 0-4 in a league myself. So when we get to the fantasy football advice, take it with a grain of salt. Although I didn't win my best bet, but let's continue with the Giants.
I'll be done with the Giants in a second, and I've been done with them.
Well, I have more Giants questions for you. You're not done yet.
I've been done with them for about a couple weeks now, honestly. To be honest, I think it'll be. And I was at the Seahawks Giants game 2 years ago, and I watched the game that they played last year. This has been a solid series. The Seahawks have had no issues with them.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll's a great coach. He has a lot of work to do. And I think this year is definitely a rebuilding year for the Giants. I think the Giants fans are looking at drafting a quarterback in the first round, very high in the first round. I think the Seahawks should do well to not look past them by any means, because a win in the NFL is very difficult. That being said, I think the Seahawks are excited to see an offense like the Giants after facing an offense like the Lions. 100%.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, so hyper-focused here on the Seahawks. It is my job, and I do love that franchise and front office.
I like them too.
They're wonderful. I know you do.
Right.
So I only know, honestly, what I know about the Giants comes from our passing conversations and just your general mood on a Monday when I see you. Always smiling, but you're like, oh, hey, Niko.
Well, they didn't play on Sunday, so I had a good weekend.
There you go.
Right.
I guess what I want to ask you, though, is, gosh, a couple years ago, I was thinking, oh, wow, this Brian Daboll guy is for real. These Giants are going to be for real. They made the playoffs, and that was impressive from where they were before. It was such a drastic and pretty, rapid change.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're where they are. And I understand last year, like, okay, Daniel Jones goes down, which gave us Tommy Cutlets, which was wonderful.
Oh,
but I mean, like, they just haven't been good these last years since that playoff bid. What happened?
I think you have to look at I think we look back at where we drafted Daniel Jones 6th overall a couple years ago. I think you'll find a lot of Giants fans will suggest that us going 9-7-1 that first year with Brian Daboll, and winning the Vikings playoff game on the road against the Vikings team that was a double-digit win team 2 years ago, and will be a double-digit win team again this year. But I think they're more solid this year than they were then. I think we're dealing with fool's gold. I think we had a great matchup against the Vikings in that game. I think Daniel Jones is a very fast quarterback. I think he can play well if he has great players around him. But if you're asking him to be exceptional, no shot.
Right.
Why are the Giants bad right now? Because the cornerback situation also is very, very dire. It's very thin. The team is thin a lot of places. On defensive line, I just mentioned Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, he's a big guy. He needs to play well enough for two guys, because I think they only have like 3 defensive linemen on the whole entire roster. Malik Neighbors is a game changer, but he's been in the NFL for 4 weeks now, and it's weird to see he's a number 1 wide receiver because they didn't have one beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hyatt, great experiment. I don't know why he's not playing more. Wanda Robertson, he's great when he gets the ball. When Daniel Jones can't throw the ball, when he's not getting hit, when he's not running for his life, when he's not missing throws. I say all this to say, I'm not sure if there's any betting lines about interceptions this year, this week.
I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there is. I would suggest you take them because the Seahawks defense, after going through what they went through in Detroit, having to chase these guys, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all across the field, there's no one to chase but Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
And he's a rookie.
He does look good.
He looks fantastic. And I hope he stays for a long time. I'd be shocked if the Seahawks have any trouble. The game is in Seattle after all.
It is.
And this is across the country for the Giants. And, I have all the faith in the world in Brian Daboll, I think.
Okay.
And the roster just isn't there yet. No.
Now, Jay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Fair or foul? I know that's our baseball one, but fair or foul?
Sure.
Seahawks run away with this. It's not even a close game in the fourth quarter.
I think that's fair to say.
It is fair to say.
I think it's fair to say.
I thought that might have been my action green colored glasses.
If they were action green, we'll have a difference.
Action green would probably look good at like a pair of those like aviators.
Yeah,
like the big shiny green.
I like those.
It's probably expensive.
Well, they look like Polaroid glasses. Like to fish in. Yeah. I think it's fair to say, especially since Mike McDonald's going to clean up a lot of the defensive issues that they may have had against Detroit. Detroit, a very, very, very good team. and a really good offense. I think it's going to be night and day compared to what they're going to face against the Giants. I say this as a Giants fan, as a lifelong Giants fan. I hope I'm completely wrong, but I've got skin in the game, and I know I'm not.
So I mean, that's about as genuine an analysis as you'll get a Giants fan, through and through, saying it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be. I'm leaning on the Yankees this year.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And Knicks. So, but
what you get from baseball, I don't get, because the Mariners, that's a conversation for another day.
We've talked about the Mariners before, and I think maybe the problems with the Giants and Mariners are kind of similar, in that you have these historic franchises, maybe one more historic than others. The Giants are celebrating the 100th year in existence, but when you look at the roster, just like, how is this going to work? And it's not like, the Mariners at least have top-notch pitching.
Yeah.
The Giants had a decent defense a couple years ago, and then we see guys like Xavier McKinney leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah.
Guys like Big Cat, Leonard Williams.
Big Cat.
Current Seahawk, Julian Love. I don't know if he'll play or not.
That's right. You forget about that. Leonard Williams and Julian both came from the Giants.
Exactly. Yeah. You're welcome. And the situation has been kind of dire since then. So, I don't know. I think it'll be, one thing about the Giants, they'll fight.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you got to say something nice about your team.
Yeah, no, I think they'll fight, and I think you can be, if you're a Giants fan, you can be heartened if you watch the Dallas Cowboys game, which is, by the way, on Thursday night was one of the most highest viewed streaming games.
Weird.
Oddly enough, the Giants scored 15 points, no touchdowns. Wow. 0 touchdowns. By that same logic, they also lost to the Commanders 2 weeks prior to that. And the Commanders did not score a single touchdown, and the Giants still lost that game.
Yeah, interesting. Najee, I want to talk about something here, because we were talking about the Giants. I want to kind of go into the Seahawks here for a minute, because
please, God, yes.
Here's the thing. I think it's important to get that opposition research, because we are, as I mentioned, like, so focused on our team, and you see highlights or you see red zone or whatever you might see. I think to really know how a team's going to look, you got to watch every play, and not just watch every play, but if you're fortunate enough to be in the jobs that we are, and we get to be at the facility, we get to watch practice, we get to see how this team conducts itself when the lights aren't on. We're walking in the hallways with them. And that's one of the cool parts about the KOMO Sports End Zone, is the idea that, we're there, we're able to talk to these guys, and it's really special in that regard. But that in mind, what stands out to me about this Seahawks team is, we talked about the way they fight. And we talked about that in the Detroit game, but we also talked about it in prior shows, how they found a way to gut it out and rally for the overtime win against New England, how they found a way to overcome all the really, really bad mistakes in the first half against Denver, find a way to win. Okay, so you didn't win this one. So what does that mean? I think for me, though, it doesn't change anything. No. Because the point I'm trying to make is, with this Seahawks team, I don't think it matters who they're playing. I don't think it matters when they're playing. If it's Monday night, Sunday afternoon, Thursday night, we get a Thursday night with the Niners in a week and a half. It's like, not even a week and a half, about a week. It's just something about this team. And I like what I like about it is, you look at this Lions game the other day, where you have AJ Barner catching a touchdown. I mean, this is a rookie doing that sort of thing. You've got guys that were literally on the practice squad the entire season, suddenly not just called up, but pressed into live action against a really good Detroit team. And listen, the defense did not play that well. But the fact that your guys can do that and have that kind of showing, and be able to perform, I think there's something about the way Mike Macdonald has this team acting on a daily basis, performing on a game-by-game basis, that I think they're going to be in every game.
I think they'll definitely be in every game.
And I think they're going to have a really good record this year still.
I think so still. And I think when you talk about records, I think you have to still look at the other teams in the division. I mean, you're competing against them, not directly, but like overall during the season.
Yeah.
There's an ongoing situation in San Francisco. I talk about this all the time,
right?
About why, well, one, they've been the team to beat in the NFC West forever. But their star player is out for several months. I know the fantasy football people are at odds with this.
Like right.
But that being said, I think, to your point, this team, I don't know. It's interesting because you watch them play defense, and not last night or not Monday night. The tackling is solid. The running is solid. 2 great running backs. A veteran quarterback who a lot of times in the league, these guys kind of like who are kind of journeyman-ish type quarterbacks like Geno Smith.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking about Andy Dalton in Carolina
sure.
too. That they kind of get poo-pooed a bit,
yeah.
Because they're not, Geno Smith was a high draft pick and then he kind of floated around a bit.
Yeah.
And then you see he passed the ball to at least 2 receptions to at least 8 different guys last night.
Yeah.
Or Monday night.
But Geno talked about that. With my much lamented point that quarterbacks as rookies are often, when they don't perform, it's probably more often than not on them. It's probably the situation, whether it's a bad franchise or just a bad situation.
Yeah.
Look at Sam Darnold, what he's doing right now.
Look at and I hope that Bryce Young gets another chance at some point.
I think he will. I think he will.
I hope he gets straight to the Giants, honestly.
Yeah, look at Baker Mayfield even. I mean, he had a good little start at Cleveland getting them to the playoffs, but then they're like, oh, he's done. And then he bounces around Carolina and the Rams. Then all of a sudden he's like the guy in Tampa.
He's like getting MVP votes
for
Tampa.
So
it's just a situation, And I think Geno's in the best case situation for him right now.
Yeah.
Geno, another former Giant for like a year also.
Yeah, that's right. He end Eli's starting streak?
Yeah, because of Bob McAdoo. I can go on for months about this.
There you go.
I'm not going to.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that anytime you want, though. Yeah. Did you need therapy about it 9 years later, whatever it is?
Giants fans need a lot of therapy because, for many reasons altogether, mostly because of the abhorrent jerseys that they wore the first game.
Those were I'm all about throwbacks. Those were not that good.
Yeah, they're like tan colored pants.
Like if you're gonna do throwbacks, wear like the Seahawks throwbacks, or wear like what they wore in the '80s. Like they did that a couple. Was that last year they did it?
They do that often, and they did it last year, a couple years ago, and they do it again this year. This whole stripes thing and the skims colored pants. I feel like George Costanza. I'm like, get out of here.
Najee, how are you feeling about a score prediction here? I'll give mine first because
okay.
I think we're on the same boat here.
Yeah. I think this is a great learning. I mean, I wouldn't say learning experience for the Seahawks, but I think how they bounce back from a loss is very important for a new head coach.
Right. Remember last year they won 24-3. You had a pick six by Spoon.
I remember.
Yes. I bet you do.
Yes.
Spoon had the pick six, which was great. That turned the game around.
Yeah.
Drew Lock had to play a series and did admirably getting the Hawks down the field to score. Drew Lock, now Giants superstar. Give him a shot. Give him a shot.
I would love to see Drew Lock play a game, honestly. I want him to start. I want him to start. Please.
Yeah. I'm about to cry. This one's at home, though.
Yeah.
Seahawks are, again, playing really good football this year. I'm going to say 31-7. 31-7 or 31-10 Seahawks.
I think that's pretty. I think that's fair. I'm going to go 24-10 Seahawks.
That's probably more on point.
Yeah. Because I think you'll get a big play from Danny Dimes or
Danny Dimes.
I can't believe I just called him that. Oh gosh. Daniel Jones or
well,
we've seen flashes of greatness from Daniel Jones.
And we've also seen at times the Seahawks defense can give up a play like that, even though they're a good unit. But you talked about that Jameson Williams play on Monday, things like that.
Jameson Williams is a freak of nature also.
Yeah,
he's
love watching him play.
Yeah. Malik Neighbors is also probably going to be the same type of player. Maybe another Odell Beckham Jr., who knows? Yeah, I think maybe 27-10. I think the Seahawks, I've heard talk that people that, that the Seahawks play down to their opponent. I don't know if that will happen. It's kind of hard to.
I think they were still just finding themselves. I don't think they were playing down to the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Patriots. I thought they were just finding themselves in a new regime first 3 games. That's maybe that is the case, but in my opinion, I thought they were just figuring.
I agree with you. I think they'll find themselves well ahead of the Giants in most of the game. I think they'll find themselves.
Well, they got to start fast, and they did that.
And there'll be another game with both K9 and Zach Charbonnet together, and I think that combination.
I don't see them losing. And if they lose, we can come back on the show, and I'll be like, "Hey, I was wrong." I just don't see that in any way, shape, or form.
I just don't. Thank you so much. I don't know. I
promise I love you, man. I just don't.
No, I know. I don't see it happen. I'd be completely shocked if that happens. The Giants are a well-coached team, but the rosters are just like Seahawks up here, Giants up here.
Yeah.
And we have to see how the injuries shake out for the rest of this week on the Seahawks side. It did show how many people they had out.
Yeah.
Byron Murphy didn't play, and
that'll be updated. And I think that regardless, I feel pretty good about it. Sorry.
I feel pretty good on it too. You don't have to say sorry. It's fine.
Let's just change the subject. Unless the Seahawks are your best bet, do you have a best bet for this weekend?
I think maybe the Seahawks are
favored by 6.
Yeah, favored by 6. Okay, it seems like a no-brainer. I'm going to pick them anyway.
Yeah, I am. This will be a quick segment because I'm going to just. That was the obvious one. I like it, but I'm going to. You know what? I'm going to go New England favored by 1 over the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are just.
I like New England this year. I know that
in shambles. I think the Patriots will win like 16-10 or something. But they'll win by 1 point at least.
I think the Patriots will end up being good this year. I don't know. I have a weird feeling about them. Yeah, they may end up being like maybe the Giants were a couple years ago, as I mentioned, the team that made 8-8, 8-9, 9-8.
Yeah, they'll be in the ballpark.
Yeah, they'll be in the ballpark. I think.
That was the quickest best bets ever. I would like to point out. I was awful the first 2 weeks of those picks. I did hit last week, just barely. The Texans, I picked the Texans.
Wow, you
favored by 3.5 over the Jags. And they won by 4.
What's going on with the Jaguars?
They're weird, man. I would use that's if you're gonna like, if you were to like go to the sports book like at Snoqualmie or whatever, I wouldn't go near the Jaguars. I think they're the weirdest team in the NFL.
They're so bizarre because they were so hot like a couple years ago.
Absolutely. So next up, given that we said we were both 0-4 in certain leagues in our fantasy career this year.
Right.
Do you have any fantasy football advice? I mean, we have to give the best fantasy football advice that you'll find in this room where we're recording this podcast.
The best in this room is literally pick any Seahawks player and start him against the Giants. If you have Geno Smith, start him. I think he'll have a big week this week because I think when you have a running back who is a game changer like K9 and he comes back, he came back 3 touchdowns. I know he's 3 touchdowns for a running back. How is that helping the quarterback? Well, he's very fast. He can run. Yeah. He can catch. I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off for Geno. I think Geno's gonna be slinging it. I think DK is looking for revenge because I think the game didn't go. He was the high yard guy, but I don't think he was particularly happy with how the game went. And again, I'm going to still bang this drum. Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, he looks good, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm going to start him this week because Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels are like this fantasy.
Yeah,
but I think we're just going to go.
My fantasy advice. And first of all, before I get to that, I want to give a shout out. We had Lance saying good show. Thank you last week. We appreciate you watching.
Thanks, Lance. Appreciate it,
Lance. I don't know how to pronounce this username, but I can something. Thanks for commenting.
Appreciate it.
Your observation. Well, the Seahawks did not beat the Lions. We both thought it was going to happen last week, so we're going to.
It honestly could have happened.
Yeah, it could have happened. It was closer than we thought, and I think it's closer than the final score indicates as well.
We won't mention that I did have the Seahawks winning that game by 2 touchdowns.
That's okay. I had them winning a close one, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
My fantasy advice. We're talking about waiver wire or starting, whatever it is. Najee's giving you kind of like a starting player advice. I'm going to go waiver wire advice. I'm going to say Trey Tucker, the receiver on the Raiders, because what's going on with this Devontae Adams situation?
Devontae Adams, I mean,
and Tucker's actually put up decent numbers, especially if you're in a PPR league.
If you look at Trey Tucker in Madden, he's very fast.
Yeah,
I
don't play Madden. I have NCAA cheats on Heisman mode, so I'm like kind of cool.
You're on Heisman mode. You're way above me, honestly. But
am I above you if I turn the same game off like 8 times?
No,
that's what I'm saying. Like that's what ends up being, but it's like stupid stuff. We could rant about NCAA for a while. It's a great game though.
It's a great game. I'm side parentheses. I'm going into my 5th year at Syracuse University. Won my first natty first year.
Our podcast advisor Pete will love that.
Yes. I have not won the natty in the last 4 years with my own players. After all, Kyle McCord, great quarterback.
Yeah. Well, they got a. They actually have a Friday game at UNLV. That's a weird game.
That's a weird game.
It is.
Yeah.
But here's my thing about this, and I want
Trey Tucker's a great pick.
Yes, he's a great pick. Yes. And I want to wrap with this, and it's kind of what we talked about at the top. I love this Seahawks team. I do. Will they get over the 10-win mark? Will they go to the playoffs? I mean, that's all stuff that, in my opinion, is just a little too early to say right now. But what I will say is this:
we've said that they will.
Exactly. I think they will. But I'm saying like definitively.
Oh, definitively.
Yeah. We both think they will. Right. And making a prediction. Yeah. Would I spend modest income that's what's that word for income? Disposable income. But I spend a modest amount of that probably if I were a betting person. But what I want to say is this: is that you're replacing Pete Carroll, 14 years. I mean, so much about that is so difficult to replace. Mike McDonald, I dig it, man. He's doing a great job. I really like the mindset around the team. Like he's this young guy, but he's also kind of old school.
He is old school.
Pete was kind of the opposite. And it's not a knock on Pete. I love Pete Carroll too. He was older, but kind of like new school. It was interesting how that dynamic plays out. But I think we're seeing the results because we saw so often last year, you'd see guys hint at, well, we got to be disciplined. We got to do this. And certainly Mike McDonald comes in with accountability. Again, final results will be the final results, but whether it's this year, and I think it will be this year. I'll go to make that clear. We both do. I think it'll be this year. They get in the postseason. I think we're looking at a really nice era ahead for Seahawks football. I think the next 1 to 4 years, the first year is always difficult. With any head coach at any level, first years there's going to be stuff like we saw the figuring things out the first 3 weeks, even though they got the wins. We saw the defense. Okay, they were injured, but there's still stuff he wants to clean up against the Lions.
Right.
But I think that, within the next few years, we're talking about being a Super Bowl contender again. Will they win it? Will they get there? Well, that's 1,000,001 variables. Okay, like the Buffalo Bills in the early 90s, easily the best team in the NFL. They just couldn't win the big one, right? And
couldn't win a game.
That's what I'm saying. So you can't guarantee they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's silly. But what I think you can do, and I think you can do responsibly with the Mike Macdonald era, I think you can look at this team and say they will be in the hunt. They will be legitimate Super Bowl contenders, deep playoff runs. Within the next, I'd say 4 years.
I agree.
And I think sooner than 4 years, but I think that's like the window, right?
I think that's
because you're gonna have a quarterback situation at some point.
That's that's completely fine. I think they'll win the NFC West this year.
I hope so.
Easily. I mean,
it's all about the Niners if they rally, but
it's not going to be the Rams.
It's not going to be the Rams. Arizona looks decent.
Better than, they gave up 40 points to the Commanders to Jaden Daniels. So, who knows?
But the Seahawks, even with the loss still in first, you figure they'll be, back when we said the first 6 games, I was hoping for 5-1. I thought we said 4-2 would be a victory.
I think we're probably, I think maybe.
And then the next stretch becomes difficult. But, you got to get this one against the Giants. You got to get the layup. Sorry. And then you got to go from there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Couldn't agree more.
Najee, this was a lot of fun.
This was fun. This was like a therapy session for me.
Therapy session for Najee.
Yes.
Hopefully some education on the Giants for all of you listening and watching. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcast. And of course, make sure you check us out on the KOMO News YouTube page. We love that. We just appreciate you guys so much. Najee and I do this for a lot of fun. We've got some great segments coming up. We've got some opposition research on the Niners, even though we know the Niners pretty well. Next week, we'll have the third member of our team. We've only seen once, but Taylor, shout out to Taylor who makes this episode go on basically every week without a hitch. And I'm going to bring him on the air with us, I think, next week. And I think that this is a great show, Najee, because again, we have that inside access. We're talking to these guys every day. And it's something that, for Seahawks fan, it's a unique ability to be able to do that. Sure, you see little clips on KOMO News, and we appreciate you watching KOMO News.
Right.
But this is that opportunity to give you the full look at everything that's happening.
I think that's completely accurate. I mean, this is a fun little podcast. It's a fun, great podcast. And please send all your comments. I always say, y'all don't come for us in the comments. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. And Pete Carroll, if you're listening, come on the podcast.
We love you, Pete.
We love you, Pete.
No, we're letting him enjoy retirement. But
you can retire and just hang. You can just hang out with us in the office.
If he wants to hang out with us, that'd be fun.
Hang out with Pete. Yeah.
Thank you for listening and watching to the KOMO Sports End Zone. I'm Niko. He's Najee. We'll see you next week.